All right. Thanks again for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Track and Field Connections podcast. I think this is week 3 of my Florida series, right? So we just had Amy Deem from the University of Miami. She was a rock star. Then we went a little bit North Florida. We went to Florida State and had Doug Reynolds, the new throws coach there. And now I am just super humbled and honored to have the head coach at Southeastern University. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Nick Dodson. Nick, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Well, in podcast time frame, when we're recording this, it's right before Thanksgiving. So I'm super pumped for really football. I don't, I eat well, as most people can see and know. So I don't really worry about the food, but I am pumped. I love college football. So I'm really excited for that, man. But when you're listening to this, it's December. So we're already past Thanksgiving. So it's weird, man. Podcast land, when you record, when you publish, you never know what reality is. It's kind of like are you a Marvel guy by any chance?
No, but I've seen a few.
Yeah, this is like the multiverse, man. You never know what reality plane we're on. But let's talk about your reality plane, man. I'm super excited to have you here. You've done some really amazing, awesome things here recently, and so excited to learn your journey up until this point here at Southeastern University and just learn more about you, man. So I don't know, Nick, where do we start, man? Where's track start for you? What's your background? Were you a kindergartner in track club, or maybe you didn't run at all? Where does track start for you?
Yeah, it's crazy. I grew up in a small town, Thomasville, Georgia, just north of Tallahassee, Florida. So I'm an old country boy, and and down in South Georgia, we play football. Mm-hmm. That's what we do down there, and so everything's kind of revolved around football. Stores close early on Friday nights for the game, and that type of thing. So it's a lot of tradition there. It's crazy. I never ran AAU or any of that stuff. Coming up, we played football. We did that during the summers. I mean, I did travel baseball, those type of things. And so I found myself in track because I was, just trying to stay in shape for football. And so I would do that in the spring, kind of started around the middle school area, maybe 7th or 8th grade. And it's pretty crazy because I got involved with the hurdles because I was one of the slowest guys on the team. And the 100, the 200, things like that. I mean, I was never going to be one of the guys that had an opportunity to be in the top 3 or travel or things like that, because there was just guys that were much faster than I was, even at a talent level, more talent than I was growing up. And so I just decided to try the hurdles and went with it from there and kind of just moved my way up to high school and just kind of did it throughout high school.
Now, you grew up in South Georgia. I grew up not too far from you, actually. So I grew up probably on the same plane, but over in Alabama. I grew up in Eufaula, Alabama. Okay. And you're right. Football is, I mean, you don't do another sport if you don't do football, pretty much, at least in my era growing up, right? Now, you grew up in South Georgia. Have you recently watched that? I don't know if you have Netflix, that football show about, now I'm losing this. Was it Valdosta?
Yeah, Titletown.
Yeah, Titletown. Did you watch that?
Yeah, so what's crazy? Small world that you brought that up. My brother helped shot that. So he's a videographer. He does.
Wow.
So yeah, he was a big part of shooting those scenes in that documentary, and he also played for Rush Probst in high school on an all-star team when he coached in Georgia. So it was pretty cool.
That's why I brought it up. That was my football coach in high school in Eufaula. Yeah, Coach Probst. Yeah.
That's cool, man. We followed him a whole lot, during this journey from Hoover and then down to Colquitt, and because Colquitt is literally our rival to Thomas County. They're our rival. So my brother actually played against Rush in high school. He actually beat him, and then after he graduated, Rush started to really get that thing running over there, and then they capped off 30 wins in 2 years, national championship. And, like good stuff. So yeah, he's a really good football coach.
And that's a great distinction. A really good football coach, he's got to clean up the other side. He always has trouble with that other side. But I tell you what, here's what, we like to talk a lot about the positive influence a coach, and specifically track coaches, can make on someone. I just have to give this example. If you don't know Rush Probst, like Google, he has his own Wikipedia page, all that kind of stuff, right? Infamous would be the right word, right? Would you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So great football coach, grew up in the Alabama system, coached at Eufaula High my senior year, went to Bayou La Battery and then Hoover, where he was one of the first like high school level, I guess, reality shows, 2-a-days on MTV.
Yep, I remember.
and got into a bunch of trouble, personal life. Then goes to Georgia. Colquitt County does a great job. Valdosta does a great job. Gets in trouble at every one of those places as well, unfortunately. But so he was my senior year football coach. Okay, just 1 year. Okay. And I was a Midland offensive lineman at best. So I started, but I was not any good. There was no me going to college to play offensive line, right? So not that I was a star. And we had stars. Like we had a kick butt sophomore quarterback. We had 2 sophomore receivers that ended up going to Louisville and where'd the other guy go? Notre Dame or Auburn, but super stud guys, right? So I was no stud by any chance, right? Played for him 1 year. So I get to Gill in 2006, and I go down to the Birmingham area around 07 when he was at Hoover. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm just going to stop in. It's like, he ain't going to remember me, but the cameras are all, this is during 2 days. So I'm like, he ain't, so I show up and go to the secretary, and I was like, hey, is Coach Post around? I'm one of his old athletes. I know he's probably busy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, go down, here. He's probably at the practice fields. And so I go down the hallway, and I almost said 100 yards, probably 30, 40, 50 yards. He was a ways away. He's walking towards me, and he sees me and immediately says, Cunningham, oh my God, what are you doing here? This is so awesome. That exactly. My jaw hit the ground. I was like, wow, this dude, I played 1 year, was not a stud. He is now famous. I mean, he's on MTV. At Bayou Battery, their defense didn't have anybody scoring them until I think the 3rd or 4th round of the playoffs. I mean, so he, like, big time coach. And he remembered me. And I tell you what, that cemented in my life, like, oh, like this guy, like he loves his athletes. Like, I mean, I was a scrub, and he remembered me. Like, it was just amazing to me. Cool. Amazing.
Oh, he actually, he's from Ohatchee, Alabama, and at Ohatchee High School, my father-in-law went to school with him.
Oh, really? Holy cow.
Connecting all these dots, man.
Who knew this was going to be a Rush Probst episode? That's so funny. Hey, another thing, getting back to track here, another thing that you said that I thought was kind of interesting so early in the podcast. I love this. You mentioned you were not one of the fast kids, and so that's how you got into hurdling. Now, we don't talk X's and O's, but as an old hurdle coach here, and as myself, that's a no-no, right? Like if you want really good like they got to have speed, man. But did you, like when you got into hurdling and you weren't one of the fast kids, did you get faster from doing hurdles? And how was your experience doing hurdles?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, I think a lot of it is too, I actually took the workouts outside of hurdling more serious. If that makes sense. And so once I had gained some confidence, saw some YouTube videos, things like that, it just started to come. And it got better and better and better. And then as we got farther into high school, some of those guys that I couldn't beat in a straight up foot race, I was able to start beating. And so it was just cool. I think a lot of it was I just started to gain some confidence in myself. And it was crazy because now just those little experiences propel me to where I am today with the sport.
Now, I remember my first, like literally my very first hurdles practice. I also was one of those slow guys, but you were way more, even if you were not one of the fastest guys on your team, you're still way more talented than I was, trust me. But I still remember my first practice because I still think we had one of those old the recycled tire tracks. I still have a couple pieces of that rubber in my hands and knees. That's how first day of practice went. Do you remember your very first practice for the hurdles?
Yeah, I do. And I still remember it was maybe the second or third day. The first day I escaped without falling. It was the second or third day I hit the deck.
So, like you said, I escaped falling.
Yeah, I falling the first day, but I think I escaped because I didn't do as many reps either. So, we started to up the repetitions in the second and third day, so it increased my chances of falling.
Do you remember that fall? And more importantly, do you remember like your attitude? Was it like, crap, if I was doing the 100, there ain't no falling really, right? Yeah. But in this, like there's some danger. Like I could fall. Did it like embolden you of like, oh, okay, I better get better? Or did it, kind of make you shy about the hurdle? Like, oh, hold on, I better be careful with this.
Yeah. A little shy, maybe the first 2 days after that. But then I've always been a guy that kind of had a little chip on my shoulder. So I kind of embrace the challenge. I was like, I'm not going to let this defeat me. And I've kind of always had that little chip. And so I think after that 48 hours, like, okay, I got to figure out what do I need to do better, whatever it is, I need to figure it out. And so I kind of just embraced it after about 2 days and said, you know what, we're going to get this thing figured out, and let's just keep chipping away at it.
And make no mistake, the hurdles are the best event.
Oh, I love
track and field. And I take all three, by the way. So you get the short sprints, right? The 110s and the 100 hurdles. Love the 300 and 400 hurdles. They're amazing.
Yep.
The steeple, to me, the 3,000 steeple should be the longest event there is on the track, to be real honest with you. But come on, man, that steeple is an awesome hurdle event as well.
When it's a good field. When it's a good field, you can literally watch the whole thing and not feel bored at all.
Right. It's awesome. That's right. There's action. Exactly. I agree. Now, every distance coach that's listening right now is yelling at me, by the way. They're like, no, same in the 5 and same in the 10. And I will say I have seen some pretty awesome 5Ks. I will still to this day say I've not seen, I don't know, wasn't that Galen Rupp and Mo Farah 10K at the Olympics? I think that was a 10K. That was kind of cool. Yeah, I'll give you that. So talk to me about hurdles in high school then, man. So you start and you get a little, I'm gonna call it gun shy from the second or third day of practice. How'd the rest of high school for the hurdles go? And were you more of a short hurdler or long hurdler? 110s or 300s?
Yeah, I did both. So I would end up it started to progress pretty good. I had throughout high school, the first 2 years, I had the number one hurdler in the country in my region in high school. And it was a guy named Tavares Washington. He ended up signing to Auburn out of high school. So he was really, really good. And there was another guy, Ty Akins.
Oh, I know Ty.
Ty Akins. I had to hurdle against him in high school, and he was 2 years older than me, state champion from Bainbridge High School. There's our rival as well. He went on to Auburn NCAA champion 07 in the 110s. And so I was dealing with those two studs for the first 2 years, my first 2 years of high school. It was crazy. And then I had a teammate named Moses Cochran, really, really good. He was always battling Ty. He ended up with state runner-up behind Ty in the 300 hurdles. And then he went on to University of Cumberland, Kentucky on a football scholarship.
Yeah.
I literally had to, I guess you can say, wait my turn.
Right.
And so my junior year, I had a really good year. I ended up with 6th in the state in Georgia in the 300 hurdles.
That's a heck of a state now. Let's not be fooling here. That's awesome.
Yeah, 6th. And so I really didn't get a lot of looks because, it's a stud state. And so I was only 6th that year. It was my senior year I exploded. I ended up winning the state championship in the 300 hurdles.
Oh, wow. What did you run? Because to win the state title in Georgia, you've got to be pretty salty.
Yeah. I went 38 low.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because I thought that I would have ran faster, but the preliminary days were really good weather. Final day, not so much. And so I think a lot of us was kind of running under caution, trying to make sure we, don't fall, stay on our feet, et cetera. Right. So I just kind of ran a pretty poised race to try to get through. But yeah, so I ended up getting through, and then that's when I started getting some offers, man. It went till after state meet senior year.
So that's amazing. We've had Olympians on, and, I always tell people, you're an Olympian, like you are 0.0001 of the population. It's really amazing. Yeah. But honestly, all the way down to the state champion, while there's certainly more state champions in track than Olympians, but still that's a small club to be in, to say, hey, in my time period, in my division, in my state, I was the best on that day. That's bravo, man, because that's pretty stinking awesome. Hey, this guy never was a state champion, so I have all reverence for state champs, man. That's really amazing. So as you were obviously getting better, that's so awesome that you picked up the hurdles and fell quickly the first week of practice and were a little gun shy, and then end your high school career as a state champion. Were there any coaches that really poured into you in regards to hurdling or track and field?
Yeah. So my senior year, well, actually my junior year, I had a coach named Brian Barnhill. He ended up leaving before my senior year, and he's the one that really kind of broke me in when it comes to these are what legit workouts look like. This is what you're going to do in college if you plan on going. My first 2 years, I'm not gonna lie, track in South Georgia was like a social gathering. Mm-hmm. We would go out there, maybe do some light warming up, and we're in and out in an hour. And then Coach Barnhill came around, and he started coming out with repeat 450s and 600s and 300 work downs. And I was like, this dude's lost his mind, and I'm about to quit. I'm just going to go to spring football.
You're like, sir, this is not how we do track down here.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, this guy's crazy. But he is the one that really showed me this is what it will be like if you plan to do it at the next level, and that you need to take it seriously. Well, then, he ended up leaving, got another job as a football coach somewhere else. And so my senior year, There was a coach named David Johnson. He was always there. He ran at West Georgia back in the days. Mm-hmm. He was a really good little 800-meter runner. And he kind of just, he stayed back in the shadows a little bit my junior year because he wasn't like the head coach or anything, and he didn't want to overstep any boundaries. Well, they had co-head coaches my senior year with the pole vault coach and Coach Johnson. So he felt he had a little bit more power, a little bit more comfort level. So he really took me under his wing and said, look, this is what it's going to be like. And I mean, we were under very strategic things that we did, hurdling everything, stuff that I had never done before. And I was like, man, that first meet of my senior year, I destroyed my lifetime best. I think I went like 38.6 in the 300 hurdles. I went 14.2. And I'm like, what's going on? I've never touched these times. And so, and then he was like, it's been the training, what you've been doing and the stuff that he put together. And then by the time my senior year, the end of my senior year, I ended up running like 14.0 and went 38.0. And I'm telling you, I was running 42s as a sophomore in the 300 hurdles.
Wow.
Yeah, and so it was like the progression was there. And I really started to understand the sport, where in the first 3 years, I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. I just thought you just go out there, you sprint, you go home. Mm-hmm. And so he really kind of taught me that. So David Johnson, Brian Barnhill were two huge ones for me in the sport and kind of helped me propel.
That's awesome, man. Shout out to them, man. I love coaches that make impact positives, man. That's amazing. Yeah. Were you also running on your 4x4 team at any point?
Yeah. I mean, I always just try to dodge the 4x4s, but my senior year, Coach Johnson was like, look, there's no way you're going to be one of the best hurdlers in the state, especially a 300 hurdling, you're not on 4x4. It makes zero sense. And I was like, I don't know why does that make zero sense? Me not understanding the sport. Why do I got to run on this? He's like, you're the best hurdlers in the state. There's no way you're not on 4x4. So I ended up being on both relays. And like I said, they really helped change my mindset and put me where I started to become more of a team player, even in an individual sport, because they were saying the individual performances is what makes the team. Mm-hmm. And so once I kind of just understood and instilled those things in my mindset, it really helped me propel so that I was at my best and helped put my team in a better position as well.
That's awesome. I love how you're like, it makes perfect sense to me that I don't run on the 4x4. I'm good. Let me just hit the sticks and I'm good over here. It's awesome. So, you're growing as a hurdler, you become a state champion. Senior year, you're starting to think about colleges, not only regardless of whether you run track or not, but just, maybe the next step of education, et cetera. At this point, as you're looking for colleges and you're improving, so maybe more people are starting to talk to you in regards to scholarships, et cetera, like that. Where are you in your mindset for education in regards to like a major, a job? What are you thinking back as a 18-year-old, 17-year-old senior?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was always in mass communication class. And so I kind of made my own little highlight tapes and stuff. This is before Huddle was around. We were making highlight tapes on VHSs. And so, I kind of learned how to do that stuff. And I was always comfortable with being in front of the camera. So my goal was always become a sports journalist. And even to this day, if I ever decide to, stop coaching, that is something I will go into, because my comfort in front of the camera, but also covering all sports, is something that I'd, love to be able to do. And so I kind of already had that in my mind, what I wanted to do as far as a career. And so luckily I was doing it in high school. And so it's cool. We had like the #1 tailgate show in the state of Georgia. Wow. You ought to see our editing room at my high school at Thomas County Central High School. There's no one in the state can match it.
Wow.
They literally have everything. It literally looks like you're in a newsroom. Huh. We had our own show called News for You, that we would, that were shot by students that would be, that they would put on the TVs during like Channel 1 time or homeroom time. And so they would cover like sports or things that's going on around the school. So I kind of already had that mindset. So when I got to college, I kind of knew what I wanted to major in.
That's really cool, man. I like that they had that opportunity at the school for you as well. Not just a dream of like, I want to be on ESPN one day because I see it on TV. Like, oh, I actually get to run my own ESPN at my high school.
Yeah, most definitely.
Was coaching at all in your mind at this point in high school? Or was it just like, hey, I love track and I love sports, so that's the avenue I'll take?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, coaching didn't come into my brain until way later in life.
So what did you end up doing for college? What you got all these coaches barking at you. How did you choose where you went and where'd you go?
Well, what's crazy is for football, because I was a pretty good football player, all region player. I did well, but I knew I probably wouldn't go to school for that. Probably, going to be undersized, especially during that time. We were in the South. They weren't going to look at me, as far as my size and stuff. I had the speed though, but so I was like, what can I do? Well, my first goal was I wanted to leave high school as a state champion. I don't know how I'm going to do it. We were state runner-ups in football. In 2002, we went back to the Georgia Dome. The next year, we lost in the semis. Then we had a really good year my senior year, but we just never got over the hump to win the state championship. But I said I wanted to win before I left. Well, God blessed me with that opportunity. I ended up winning in track. What's crazy is I literally had maybe 3 or 4 schools that were looking at me. I had one offer.
Wow, really? You said this is around 2002. What year is this roughly?
So I graduated 2006 was my senior year.
Okay,
so I legit had like one offer, and I said, "Man, you ain't got much to choose from." I had like Kennesaw State was looking at me at one point. UGA was looking at me at one point, but this is before the Petros era and all of them. And now Carroll's there, but yeah, that was way before their era. And then a little shorter University came out of nowhere. I saw the coach at the state meet, and the guy told my parents, he said, look, he's actually my mentor named Scott Byrd.
I was gonna say, was that Scott Byrd back then? Yeah.
And so he was like, yeah, I'm starting the program from scratch. And he said, I want you to be our first signee. We're going to build the program around you. I thought the guy was crazy. I literally thought the guy was crazy. I said, me? I mean, yeah, I won a state championship, today, because I met the guy the day that I won, but he said he had been watching me and he had to have, because when he approached, my parents and I, dude had all the information on me. He knew about as much about me as I knew about myself. And I'm like, all right, this is a little bit scary. And so, but he made it clear that he wanted to start a program. This is what his goals were. This is where he was planning to take the program. And, he said he couldn't guarantee anything, but the guy told me this, and I'm not lying. He said, you guys, you come in, we build this thing around you. We're going to put some really good athletes in there. We're going to win a national championship in 5 years. Team title.
Wow.
Right. Remind you, we don't even got a shirt with our name on it.
All right.
Like, he was dead serious. And so I told my dad when we left, I said, man, I love this guy's energy, but he's crazy. Like, I don't see it happening, but he stuck to it. And, we'll get deeper into that, but exactly what happened.
And you grew up in Georgia, and you grew up in a time, we're talking 2006 now. So internet is available everywhere at that point. It's funny. So 2006 would have been, that's actually when I started at Gill. So that'd have been 15 years ago. So this was still pre-iPhone though, but iPhone's only been around 13 years, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
But it's still pre-iPhone. So pre kind of smartphone-ish, but still internet. Had you heard of Short? But they didn't even have a track team. So maybe you didn't even really know about them.
No, what's crazy is I did get a letter from Shorter at one point, and it's because they had just started football the year prior. And so Coach Phil Jones was there. He started the program, and I received a letter, but I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was for football or just, one of those general letters you would get in the mail. And so I didn't even know where they were located. My parents and I had to look it up. Now, I had been to Rome before because I was a wrestler in high school. And so we wrestled in Rome for one of our state championships. And so I had been there before, but didn't know Byrd College was there, didn't know Shorter University, didn't know anything about that. And at the time when I enrolled at Shorter, it was Shorter College. They transitioned to university during my time there. I think it started my junior year. And so, I had no clue, but what's crazy is I had one offer and it was from them.
That's amazing. I went to the greatest university in the world, Troy University, and we recruit Georgia a lot. I'm really disappointed in our now former coaches. Maybe this is why they're the former coaches, that they did not recruit you at Troy University. I'm very, very disappointed in my alma mater there.
I won that meet, the Coach O Invitational at Troy my senior year. I won that meet in the 400 hurdles.
You got to run on heaven on earth. I know. It's an amazing place. So when you ran, the track wasn't in the football field when you ran, right?
No,
it was. Yeah. See, when I was there, the track was in the football stadium. So it was much cooler. Although the new facility is awesome too, because it's dedicated to just track and soccer and all that. But cool. So you go to Shorter.
Yep.
Yeah. Shorter. Not Seahawks. What's their mascot? I should know this. Hawks.
The Shorter University Hawks. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew. So I was thinking Seahawks. I knew it wasn't Seahawks. So you go
Yep.
to Shorter. Did you run with Nigel Talton?
I did.
Yeah.
He was a groomsman at my wedding. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, small world, man.
Oh man! So if you don't know Nigel Talton, first of all, former guest on the Gill Connections podcast, he is also known as the Freeze for the Atlanta Braves. So if you see that guy, his clips have gone mega viral. He's the guy that races people in the outfield and beats them like every time. He's really stinking fast, man. That's so cool that you had Nigel as a team, and he was your groomsman. Say again.
I knew Freeze before Freeze. I tell people all the time. I was like, yeah, guys, groomsman wedding. One of my best friends. He's from Peach County, Fort Valley, Georgia, and I used to went on my way down to South Georgia. I used to drop him off at the house because I got to pass the exit, and so it was just pretty cool to kind of see, his transition and where God took him, and man, it's really awesome. And dude's a star, man.
He's awesome, man. He's a good dude. I love him. That's so cool. I love Small World. That's awesome.
Yep. And he went to Shorter.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So so did you go there to Shorter? Did you study communications or sports journalism? What did you end up studying?
Yeah, so I ended up graduating with my degree in media studies and a minor in journalism.
Yeah.
So and it went great. It was a great program. I really learned a lot. I had the opportunity to do an internship at the Rome News Tribune, which is the newspaper there. And what was cool was I didn't really have to write. They wanted me to cover high school football. So I was actually able to be on the sidelines and kind of get footage of some of the games. So they'll send you to a couple games. We come in late that night, edit everything up, because they would do like a show as well through the newspaper. So everything wasn't just about writing.
Right.
But I did do some writing. So they kind of gave me the experience of learning all of the things that were involved with sports coverage, especially high school sports in the area. So it was a really cool experience for me.
That is cool. Did you specialize on the track side? A lot of times when we go to college and we're, a dual hurdler in high school, we specialize one way or the other, short hurdles or long hurdles. Did you specialize in one or the other, and how did it go overall?
Yeah, well, I was a really good high hurdler, man. I went 13.9 in high school. So I was like, okay, I should be able to. And and it was all part of that 1 year wonder, my senior year. That's when everything kind of happened. And I got to college, man. And I was like, dude, these hurdles are a little too high for me. I said, look, and I tried everything. I had really good technique, but man, I was just killing my ankle. I was just banging it out, man. And it was like, Coach Byrd was like, look, dude, I think you're going to be a better intermediate hurdler anyways. Why don't we just go there full time? And I'm like, dude, that's 400 hurdles, man. See, I could sprint the 300 hurdles all the way around.
Yep.
Now, that may not have been the best option of race strategy when in high school, but I was able to do it. You can't do that to 400 hurdles unless you want to die. And so, but yeah, he said, look, I have all the tools needed to get you where you need to go. The question is, are you going to be coachable? Are you going to listen? And he said, if you do, you'll win national championship. It's very simple. I was like, man, this guy is right. And he's straight to the point. Never had a coach like it. He was directly to the point. And I said, you know what? That's a good question. Am I going to buy in or not? And so I did. And so I ended up going to 400 hurdles full time. And it started to get easier and easier. I found it where it became easier than the 300 hurdles, to be honest, which might sound crazy. But I think it's also, too, I had a really good coach that understood the event. But I was able to train from August all the way through May. Never had the opportunity to do those things, when you're in high school and you're playing 2 other sports, and so I think that made a big difference.
Did you have any kind of like one eye over to the football team? Like, man, maybe I should be playing football too while you're at Shorter?
Well, what's crazy? I played my very first year. I did. I played, started a few games. I mean, I got in about every game. I was, legit true freshman, and I went out there and turned some heads pretty quick. And Coach Byrd said he would give me that opportunity, but he always said that track was going to be my top sport. But he gave me the opportunity. I'm sure he held his breath that I didn't get hurt as well. But that first year, scored a few touchdowns because Shorter had a really good team. We knocked off some nationally ranked teams like Bethel, Tennessee, and Lambeth when they had Lambeth in Mississippi. And so we played really good. Matter of fact, I played against Hugh Freeze when he coached at Lambeth.
Oh, wow.
It's just lot of small worlds, man. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so after that first year though, we did well. But I end up during the track season was national runner-up at my first year at Shorter as a freshman. And so Coach Byrd said, "Look, you won't put a pair of cleats on ever again."
Wow.
He told me straight up.
So you were runner-up your freshman year in the 400 hurdles. Did that exceed your expectations? And I mean, like, being real expectations. Like, we always, any athlete worth their salt, right, wants to be the MVP of their basketball, the state champ, and some of us just don't have the ability, or at least the ability in that year, right? Like freshman year, you join track and field, and you're like, I'm going to win the national championship. Like, hey, yeah, okay, kid. Maybe by junior, senior year, just don't discount the other good guys that are out there. Yeah. Did that runner-up like exceed your expectations, or were you pointing towards like, oh no, I saw what the mark took last year, my first meet out the gate, I hit real close to it, or what, I'm saying? Like, talk to me about that feeling of like the expectation side of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be straight up honest. That very first year, my goal was to, not go back home. Like, we had so many great athletes come from my hometown. We had some that were really, really good that just didn't maybe do what they were supposed to academically, or found themselves in some sort of trouble outside of the field or the track. And, we got some legends in my town, Charlie Ward Jr. being one of them, Heisman Trophy winner 1993, went to my high school, Florida State. But we had a lot of talent come out of there that didn't do anything with their talent. And my first year up there, I said, look, I won't be headed home. I'm going to stay my butt out of trouble. I'm going to do my schoolwork. I'm going to make my family proud. I didn't pay no attention about, I was just hoping that I'll do the best that I can so that this coach will keep me around. I didn't even know where you even look up the times on the internet. Like, I really didn't. Like, someone had to show me like where you can find this stuff. So my very first meet and outdoor season that year, now remind you, I didn't do any fall training.
Right.
I was a hurdle. I played football the whole time. And so my very first meet, I still remember I won at the Emory Invitational in Atlanta. I ran 53.84. The national qualifying A standard was 53.90.
Yeah.
Mike, when I tell you I've never hurt so bad. I told this guy, he said, yeah, you just hit the standard. What? I literally felt like I won the national championship. That's how bad it hurt. And it was like, because, I didn't do any fall training. He said, no, I'm telling you, dude, you literally, you stay on top of this training. We're going to have to discuss some things. Because if I would have did fall training, I would have definitely opened up much, much faster.
Yeah.
Than that. And so, and then what's crazy is I opened up 53.84. One, it felt so bad. I ended the year 51.26 and national runner-up.
Wow.
And so it was that stretch there, but I never expected any of that. Like, my mindset literally was just do what I can to make sure that this guy is happy so I can keep my scholarship, and I got to come back home with a degree. My parents told me, you make sure when you get there, you do not come back unless it breaks, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever it is. And so, yeah, my first year I had no expectations. I ended up winning the Mid-South Conference in the 400 hurdles that first year, and then I was national runner-up. And the rest is history. It's pretty crazy how all of that, how all of that happened.
That's amazing. I mean, I can't imagine, especially in a 400 hurdles event, which is tough, right? Like, anything that changes from high school to college, meaning 300 to 400 hurdles, the 12-pound shot to the 16-pound shot, like, those are just unexpected. The kid who's a distance runner becomes a steepler in college. Like you have like almost no expectations, right? Because you're like, man, it's a brand new event. I know the 300 sounds like the 400 hurdles, but it's a brand new event, right? And I love your attitude about, we call those guys and gals who are big time studs and then go to college and then quickly come back and, they didn't do the right things academically and socially, call those hometown heroes. That they need to go somewhere else and be heroes, right? You got to go on and get your degree. So talk to me about the rest of college, and when, if at all, did things in your head start changing to like, oh, like I could actually be a coach for a living? When and where, if at all, like I said, during your college career, did that occur?
Yeah. So, after that first year, we saw the success. My college coach was like, look, you're not putting a pair of cleats on ever again. Because he said, you have a future. He said, I believe that you can make it to the next level. If, you continue to work your butt off, do these things, I feel like you can really do it. And so, after that, I decided, that, okay, I'm going to really take this seriously. I'm going to try to eat the best I can, try to make sure I stay on top of my rehab. Like, these are things that I was learning that I didn't do in high school. Like really how to be a full-time track athlete on and off the track. So after that first year, I won the Mid-South National Runner-Up. I went on to be a 3-time national runner-up. So I never lost in any preliminary rounds or anything. I lost for the first 3 years, I got edged at the line all 3 times by the Guatemalan Olympian named Alan Ayala, a really good friend of mine. He went to Dickinson State. He was an Olympian for Guatemala. And so I lost 3 times to him in some close dogfights. Like, I was running 50.8 and losing.
Oh.
Yeah, I ran 50.8 and lost. And so, you know, and what's crazy is I've in the NAIA National Championships since 2011. I won in 2011. No one has ran a faster time than I have all the way up to right now. No one still has ran faster than I have.
Wow.
So it just goes to show you the level of talent, not just me, but what was in the field that we were going against. And remind you, we were doing 3 rounds then. They don't do 3 rounds anymore. Wow. We were running all 3 days. Oof. And so we did those. And like I said, I ran 50.8 and lost. There's been years where 52 is won.
Right.
You know, and so, and it is no knock on those athletes. It just shows you the amount of studs that we had in those fields and what it took. Well, I ended up, you know, winning 4 Mid-South Conference championships in the 400 hurdles. I was the first athlete to ever do that. And I thought that was a pretty cool honor. The guy that I beat my first year when I won the Mid-South, really good hurdler. He was going for his 3rd consecutive. He's from University of Cumberland. Really good guy. And I think he really underestimated me the first year. Like, I'm sure he saw my name on the performance list. He's like, he's a freshman. Yeah, you know, the guy's going for his 3rd straight. And I hammered him pretty good in the finals. But I watched some film on him too. So this is where I really started to get deep into, all right, I need to know who my competitors are. I need to know what I need to do to make sure. So, you know, I YouTubed the guy, found him. So I looked at like 5 or 6 of his races, kind of see what he likes to do, how he likes to get out. And he did exactly what I thought he would do against me. So I took him out hard, took him with me. He died because I knew where I was going to kind of lay off the gas and he didn't know. Sort of like a receiver running a route. The receiver knows where he's going, the corner doesn't. And so it was kind of that mindset. But he was a really good guy. So I ended his streak and I found myself at my senior year. I'm like, man, you know, a lot of articles coming out. I can become the first 4-time to ever do it. Can never be beat, only can be matched. And I'm like, hopefully no one comes around. I do what I did to the other guy about 3 years ago. you know, you're worried about that. And it's crazy because it could have happened. I had a guy by one of my teammates because Byrd brought a stud in to prepare for my departure. Good. He was a state champion from Clark Central up in Athens. And he came in. The guy was good. He ran 52.10 and I beat him, but it was no playing around. Like,
yeah.
Guy could really beat me.
When you get to that level, the only thing you can do is look over your shoulder like, all right, who's coming? Who's going to knock me off here?
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's what propelled that to that. And so after my senior year, I ended up winning the national championship. I got over the hump after 3 runner-ups, win the national championship. And so I was trying to decide on what I wanted to do. Had some opportunities to maybe run professionally a little bit, no major contracts or nothing like that, just an opportunity to be able to do it, get some maybe apparel sponsorship, etc. And I did it for just a little bit afterwards. Coach Byrd coached me and I just didn't find the love for it still. It showed me how much I loved the team atmosphere. It was so much different just being with the coach. And it's for some people and it's not for some people. And it just wasn't for me. Like being out there with my teammates, seeing them all working hard and knowing that we get to travel together to the competitions and things like that. That's what excited me. And I didn't realize how much that excited me until it was over with.
You know, I have a theory why you make great points right there. That's really, I think, important. We don't talk about it a lot. And it involves the coaching as well, not just athletically as an athlete. But, you know, you'll see kids, you may have had some through your coaching career that, let's use the quarter as an example. Maybe in the open quarter, they run 50 flat, 50 point all the time, right? And then they get on a relay and a legit relay split, not some of these, crazy relay splits, but like a legit leadoff split, 48 point. It's like, man, why can't you just do that in the open?
Exactly.
Well, in the open, you're running for self, even though you get shorter on your jersey and you're running for team points, etc. But there's nothing like a relay where it's like, oh, I have to hand off to a teammate, or I have to get the baton from a teammate, and you see some like crazy, even through the 4x8s and DMRs, you see some crazy splits because you're running for someone else.
Exactly.
And I think that same thing that you just said there about when I was on the shorter team running the 400 hurdles, it was about scoring points for the team, winning the Mid-South Conference, scoring points at NAIA, trying to get a team title there, win a trophy there. Now running post-collegially, well, it's just me. Like who? Like it almost doesn't matter how good I do. Like it's not going to affect anybody else.
Exactly.
That's I think probably the better. This is just a theory. The better track athletes that we have, like elite wise, like going to Olympics and stuff like that. I wonder if their mindset, if they were really to probe it, was like, oh yeah, it's my life to run for that flag, for that Team USA, or if they're part of a group, man, it's, you know, that guy pushes me and that's my teammate. And if I don't push him, then they don't get, like, you know, they create their own team, like, oh, I'm doing it for so-and-so or my coach, or maybe it's even the family, right? Like, oh, if I don't run fast, I don't eat and my family doesn't eat, you know, that kind of thing. Like we talk about it being an individual sport, but I think having that team is the most important part about it. That's interesting how you kind of came across that as you took the next step and were like, well, this ain't as much fun, to be honest with you.
And it's crazy that, you know, you kind of mentioned that, because that's why I went so hard to try to represent the NAIA, and I did qualify for the Olympic trials, and there's not a lot of NAIA athletes that do that each year. And nothing against the NAIA at all. I mean, it's just, you know, we have just as much talent, I believe, as any other division. You go look at our winning times and performances, it shows. The only difference is some of the other divisions have a bigger bulk of those winners.
Yep, that's right.
So, you know, you take our top dogs out of ours against any other top dogs, and we're competitive.
Yep.
They just have a bigger bulk a lot of the times.
I wish they did, like, you know how some states have meet a champs, so they take the, you know, 1A through 5A and take all the one. I wish we did that in collegiate. I know you can say the, you know, U.S. champs or whatever, but that excludes our international athletes, and it's a different level. I wish they would take all the NAIA JUCO. If you're collegiate, if you're freshman through senior, one meet, just the top 8, just do like the like Texas State meet, man. Just one heat of the 400 hurdles for men, one for the women, 100, you know, relays, and let's just put it out. That would be awesome, right? Like, I'd pay for that meet, man. Let me tell you what, I'd love to see it. So
touch on one thing that you had just said, and it was crazy, because it's like you were literally walking into a lot of stuff we said. So we talked about, you know, the team atmosphere and how it wasn't the same, and you used the relay analogy. Let me tell you how cool it was how we won our first NAIA team national championship at shorter.
Oh, you did win. I meant to ask about that. That's awesome. So
we won the indoor and the outdoor title in 5 years, just like he said.
Wow. Scott Byrd.
It was absolutely insane. We looked around, and so we were in indoors. Now, a lot of people don't know Paul Chalimo, the Olympic silver medalist for the United States. That was my college teammate. He ran for short.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Guy was an absolute animal. Like, we knew he was going to be something serious, running 14s in the 5K. Like, this guy's unreal. And so he dominated for us. So it came down to the 4x4. Okay. We had some injuries. All right. And we needed to place a certain spot in the 4x4 to clinch the team title. Now, remind you, Nigel Talton Freeze was not 400 meter runner. He was a sprinter. But we had some injuries during the year, and we had to put him in. He was our third leg. He was going to bring me the stick. So Coach Byrd had already figured out the numbers. He came in and put his arm around me, you know, before we even went to go warm up. And he said, look, I told you that we're going to start this program with you. And I told you we're going to win a national championship in 5 years. It now sits in your hands. And I'm sitting there like, what? Like, because I haven't paid attention to the scoreboard. I'm just thinking we're going to go run the 4x4 like we normally do. I literally haven't paid attention to the scoreboard, you know, like where we're placed at. Coach Byrd said, look, Chalimo's went out there. He just did what he needed to do. He has now put us in position. He said, we have to place no worse than 4th in the 4x4, and we have to finish no worse than 1 spot behind Wayland Baptist.
Oh, hey, there's a storied program. Okay.
Yeah, they're good.
That's a tall task. Yeah.
It's a very tall task. When you said Wayland, we're like, all right, they're the real deal.
Right.
I mean, we're down a leg. Like, we have Nigel in, and nothing against Nigel. This was in Nigel's young time, but we had to place him 100-meter runner in that hadn't done any of this stuff with us. The moment, you know, can be too big. It's a lot.
Sure, absolutely.
Now, Nigel held his ground, did great. But when I got the stick, because of our first 2 legs, we just did okay. I got to stick in 7th place. He told me we got to be in 4th.
Were you third leg?
I was the anchor.
Your anchor. Okay. All right.
Nigel was the 3rd. So Nigel
okay.
actually brought us up a spot. We were actually in last.
Yeah.
And Nigel brought us up a spot to 7th, but I still got to stick in 7th.
So you got to pass 3 teams at least, and you got to keep your eye on Wayland, because even if you're in 4th, you got to be in 2nd if they're leading.
Absolutely insane. I told Coach Byrd told me, he said, look, it's in your hands right now. And I told you it would come down to this one day. I didn't know when. And look how it's drawn up. He said, I need you to step up more. I still remember to this day what he told me. I need you to step up more than ever. And you find a way. Don't come back over here unless you found a way. Exactly what he told me. And he walked off. There was nothing else he needed to tell me. I just said, continue my warm-up, I guess. So I'm sitting there nervous, but confident, but nervous. Nigel brings me the stick, and all I did was I can see Wayland turning the corner. They're already headed around the corner. And we're running in Geneva, Ohio at Spire. That's where it was. And so I saw them turning the corner, and I said, you know what? Just pick them off one at a time, just a little at a time. Don't go try to go get everybody early. We came on the home stretch. I passed the remaining 2, and I found Wayland, and they literally finished 3rd. We finished 4th, national champions.
Wow.
It was crazy. Like, I could have never, screwed that up in a million years that it would go that way. And it wasn't about me, but it was the fact that I was the first signee of the program. And Coach Byrd told me one day that team title will come down to where he's going to have to ask me, that the person he wanted to go with to start the program on the men's side, it would come down to me. And he was confident in me taking the stick for him.
We talk about stories, right? If you build it, they will come. Baseball stories, football stories, Rudy, etc. What an amazing story from literally the beginning till the payoff. What was it like? So you had your instructions, you knew what was on the line. Did you know that you accomplished it when you hit the finish line? Like, did you actually know, like, oh, okay, because sometimes you get lost on what place I'm in, but Wayland's there. Did you know that you accomplished the goal? And then if you did, or when you found out, like, yep, you did it, we won, what was the payoff like?
Yeah, I knew we had won only because he told me what I needed to do.
Okay, so you knew where you were in the race, and like you okay. So you crossed that finish line. You've done it. Not only did you made another All-American, right? Because the 4x4 was 3rd. Or 4th, but you win the team title. I mean, that's, we talked about winning a state title. That's a small club. Winning a collegiate national title individually or as a team, rare of rare here. What was it like? What went through your mind? What endorphins kicked in when you passed that finish line?
It was so unbelievable, man. All I could do is just go find my teammates, because I knew what we all put in. Like all those long days and those early mornings and those days that it was really cold in Rome, and Coach Byrd has us doing long runs at 6 a.m. You just think about all of those things that we went through throughout the year, whether it was injuries or whether it was trying to help a teammate during, study and find some good study habits, because we know we're going to need them to be eligible. It was just a lot of that was running through my head. And I really, for the first 15, 20 minutes, I was so gassed and tired. But those things were running through my head. Like, I can't believe it. Like, we really did it. And remind you, the teams that we beat to win, this is when the NAIA was an absolute powerhouse. This is when Azusa Pacific was in. This is when Oklahoma Baptist was in. This is when Simon Fraser was in. This is when a lot of the big dogs that have now moved to Division II, and nothing is NAIA now. This is when you saw some of the ones that are dominating in Division II now. This is when they were in. And this is how we ended up going out and winning the indoor title. And it was just like, we wanted to do it for Coach Byrd because he believed in us. He signed a bunch of kids that nobody wanted. We were a bunch of kids that nobody wanted. Right. And we wanted to do it for him and the staff. And that's what the things that kind of ran through my head was, we made it happen for a guy and a staff that said, you know what? Everybody else says you're not good enough, but you're good enough to be here.
Man, we should just stop right here. What a great podcast just on the athleticism of you, Nick, man. I mean, and just the goal setting and goal accomplishing, man. Holy cow. Yeah. That's amazing. That, like I said, that's a Rudy story. That's a Field of Dreams story. That is amazing. And shout out to Scott Byrd. I've known Scott for a long time. I didn't know that story though. That is so amazing. That's awesome.
He'll tell you, man. He's
golly.
the guy, he's one of the most confident guys I've ever been around. The guy never seems to be nervous. Like, he literally told me that and he walked off. It's like, okay.
I love
Like,
it.
he didn't care. It's just, he was confident, but he would always say that I'm confident in what the product that we're putting out there. I'm confident because I know what you guys have put in. And so he said, there's not much more talking need to be done.
That's awesome.
So, and then, we went and win the outdoor title and we dominated there. And but we wanted to let everyone in NAIA know that was not a fluke. And so it really developed more of a chip on our shoulders that we're going to win this outdoor title because we want everybody to know this wasn't luck. That we're really that good if we put it all together,
So let's start transitioning over. What an amazing athletic, not only career, like your individual stats, but the championships. Like, that to me is what we really remember when we look back 10, 20, 30 years from now. Right. So let's start transitioning to your coaching career. You said you started running, you kept running a little bit after graduation, but kind of, wasn't the same flavor as when you were a shorter hawk. When did coaching start coming into your life?
Yeah. So after my senior year, all of that glory that happened, it was awesome. And like I said, I was thinking about and did do a little bit of training, afterwards. It just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy the atmosphere. I enjoyed the team setting more. And so I was talking to Coach Byrd and asked him what his thoughts were, because I don't want to go sit in the office and write articles right now. Like, I just don't want to do that. Like, I want to be involved in that career one day, but not right now. I still got a little fire about me. And he said, you know what, man, you were a team captain for us. You're a great leader. He said, you ever thought about coaching? And I said, no, not really, and he said, you know the sport a little bit better than you think, but it's a lot more you need to learn about the sport and, how we put workouts together, the scientific part. He said, why don't you do this? Why don't you go get your level 1? All right. I'll get you signed up. Go get your USA Track and Field level 1, kind of learn about the sport, and then kind of decide if this is something that you may want to do. And so I did. I went down to Georgia State, and then in 2011, I went and got my USA Track and Field level 1 certification. I was like, man, I didn't really know it was this much involved. And that's just X's and O's.
Do you remember who your teachers were?
I want to say, because I had Lauren Seagrave twice.
Yeah.
I want to say Lauren Seagrave was for level 1.
Yep.
He definitely was for my level 2, and when I did Emerging Elite. And so I want to say it was Seagrave and old Charles. I want to say Charles was one of them too. Okay. But yeah, it was back in 2011.
Yeah, a long time ago. And it's such a, that it's 22 or 24 hours of instruction, and it feels like it's in 24 hours. They're long days, man.
So I went and got that, and I said, maybe I'll take Coach Byrd up on this. So this is a pretty cool stat, and I tell all of my student athletes all the time. So I just started emailing coaches. I've never been a GA. I've never been a high school coach, never been a volunteer coach, never been a rec coach, nothing. I just started emailing coaches. It's crazy, Mike. I emailed 452 people.
Now, I'm big on that. I love this hustle, and I love direct communication. And if you tell me the truth, and if you tell me the wrong answer, I'm going to get on to you. When you emailed 400 coaches, did you email them individually, or did you, I'm going to call it blind carbon copy, 400 coaches, hey, this is me, blah, blah, blah?
I promise on everything, I emailed them all individually.
That's my man right there. That to me is real hustle right there. I hear about, in the sales world and business world, people like, yeah, I emailed 1,000 coaches and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, man. You just did one email? They're like, yeah, time efficiency. And it's like, yeah, man, it's certainly more efficient. It's much quicker. But personalization, relationship, actually, hitting it right on the head. When I do, every once in a while, I'll do a mass emailing like that, right? It's rare for me to do it though. I will send out. If any, I know some people right now know other things that I've done individually, and this ain't about me, but when I do a mass email, I'll put on there, hey, I'm so sorry. This is one of those, like, I just point out like, hey man, I'm so sorry. I wanted to get a big message out to as many people as possible. I'm so sorry. I hate this. That's awesome, man. You emailed each coach individually. And so what did you say to these coaches?
I just pretty much, and the reason why they were all individually and not a blind copy, because I would go read the bios on these particular head coaches. And if I felt that there was a dot connector there that maybe they may know something about me or something, I was able to add that in those emails. A blind copy wasn't going to allow me to do that. And so I just kind of just said, this is my name, this is where I'm from, this is what I accomplished as an athlete, this is the school I went to, Coach Scott Byrd. I kind of used him to my advantage because a lot of people knew him. He's my mentor, my head coach, and I want to get into coaching, whether it's a graduate assistant or assistant coach. And I promise on everything, man, I got one reply out of 4.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Reply. And you can't blame the guys. I mean, I get some of these emails too at times, and I didn't have any experience, things like that. So I get it.
I'm not a fan of someone who doesn't reply, but to your point, I get it 100%. Yeah. No judgment, right? Like I feel like you should, if you are a coach and a young kid reaches out to you for help, blah, blah, because it helped me. Like, go back and listen to, we had Mouse Holloway on the show last year, season 1, I think it was. And one of the stories I remember with him, that's Mouse Holloway, right, is when I was a young high school coach, he had just gotten the job at Florida, and I reached out to him. This is back in the AIM AOL instant messenger days. And somehow, I don't know how, did we have everybody? I don't know how I had his instant message, but I instant messaged him. Big time, just now at University of Florida. I'm this, know nothing high school coach in Chicago. And he talked to me like I was a person. And I always high esteem. Mouse Holloway took the time to talk to me. And he's still to this day, he's an amazing guy. Right. So reply back, even if it's a simple, hey, I'm so sorry, we don't have any positions, good luck or whatever. But as the sender, I love this attitude. No expectations, right? Like, hey, I'm gonna send this out. I got if 0 respond back, oh, well, that sucks. I'll find a different way to communicate, right? Love that. Okay. So we got to give a shout out. I hope you're about to give us the payoff here. Who was the one coach, man? I want to know this hero here. Who was this?
So the one person that replied was Coach Pete Mazzone. He's the head cross country coach. They don't have track now, but they did then at Florida Tech down in Melbourne, Florida Institute of Technology. So he emailed me back, and he was like, he appreciated me just sending him the email, and he said he was interested. And I'm like, wow. So me, I get the email, I hit him back immediately. I'm like, hey, let me go ahead and hit him back. Go ahead and just to try to get some. He may reply back. We get something going, so I don't have to wait a week or two for an email back or whatever. I don't know how good of a emailer he is, so I said, let me just go ahead and hit him back. I did. I hit him back instantly. He emailed me right back. He said, look, we're interested. It's not a lot of money for the position, but he said, you seem like someone that you're going to take pride in what you do, and I want to give you a chance. So I want to interview you. So he brought. I came down, did an interview. And he said, you know what, just off of your heart, your spirit, and I know you don't have any experience, but he said the one experience you have is you're a winner. And he said that, and I'm going to give you a chance because you're a winner. And I'd be darned, that sucker hired me. And so we started the program. And what's crazy, they never had a track program. So that was another reason why he wanted to bring me on, because I was the first signee to get shorter.
Yeah, you've got that experience. Yeah. Right.
Experience, and I saw it as an athlete, so I will be able to kind of relate to the athletes that we're going to bring in, right. And I'll have patience because I'm an athlete.
Now, you didn't try the Scott Byrd technique, did you? Like on everybody you recruited, hey man, you're gonna be the first guy we signed. We're gonna win a national title. There's few people that can pull that off, and Scott Bird's one of them.
I sure did. I think Coach Byrd must have knew we had some good sort of budget or something. He must have knew something I didn't know.
He knew something.
Yeah, but I didn't take that route. But I did take a lot of the stuff that we did and kind of implement it into what we did at FIT, just from a culture standpoint, from a build program on relationship standpoint, et cetera. I did take that aspect, and boy, we took off immediately in Division II. We had some All-Americans right out of the gate. Wow. It was really, really cool. And so I stayed there for about 3 years. And I went to, Coach Mazzone, and I said, man, because he's been there since the 80s. So I knew he wasn't leaving no time soon. And he's also the associate AD as well. And so I said, I went to him one day and I said, I think I'm ready to be a head coach. And he said, I agree with you.
Did you say a head coach?
A head coach.
Now you've been there. Where's this coming from? Because you've been there 3 years. You didn't grow up, you didn't tell me about your freshman year in high school. You're like, yep, I knew I was going to be a coach since I was 13 years old, whatever, right? After 3 years, because this could be a fine line between bravado, but actual destination, as well. Why after 3 years of a program that just started, again, it's not like, you get into a program and you've learned so much because of the championship staff that was there. What was it after 3 years that you're like, yeah, I want to be a head coach?
Well, the cool thing is Pete really let me run the show for track, and he just handled cross country. He didn't have a lot of strengths when it comes to knowledge and like sprints and hurdles and jumps. And so he said, you know what? It's all you. He let me recruit everything. When I tell you, he let me do the work. And I think it helped me too, because I didn't have him looking over my shoulder, but he would kind of mentor me and encourage me along the way, because he was just straight up. He said, this is not one of my strengths, but he said, the best way to learn is to actually do it and make mistakes along the way and learn to adjust to it. And so
it seemed like you had a good mentor in Pete, and shout out Pete. That's amazing that you would give a young kid, honestly, the reins and guide the person, but not to micromanage or micro limits the experience that Nick had there. So shout out, man. That's amazing. Were there other coaches during that 3 years, whether it was the baseball coach at Florida Tech or other coaches like a Mouse at Florida? Were there other coaches that you were, whether it was formally being mentored, meaning asking a lot of questions and getting answers, or anybody that maybe you just kind of kept an eye on, like, I'm watching how he or she leads that program. I think that's kind of cool how they did that, like kind of storing up all this, like, in the future, I'm going to do this. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the athletic director, name was Bill Juergens at the time. He's now retired. He had been at FIT for over 50 years, whether it was like an athlete, coach, and AD. He had been there forever. And so I kind of picked his brain, and he kind of, anytime I asked him a question, I was like a nagging gnat. Like, I would always have questions. I was like trying to learn. I was young, man. I didn't have anything to do but learn. And so I go ahead and, try to pick his brain. So he was one. And then also two, they had a women's basketball coach that's been there just as long as Coach Mazzone. That's one thing about FIT. They don't have a lot of turnover. Those people, they go there and they stay. And so I guess, it's a good enough culture where that's what they want to do. So he had been the basketball coach there, I don't know, close to 30 years, if not 30. His name was John Reynolds. And so I would pick his brain, but also watch how he operated his team. So I would catch some of his practices. I would, his door was always open when he had meetings with his staff, because he felt he had nothing to hide. So I had an opportunity to kind of listen to see how he would run meetings and how he would talk to his staff, and what was their direction and their philosophy as far as the program and recruiting. And so I took a lot of things from his toolbox and put it in mine. And I think that it really helped me. So when I did become a head coach, I was ready, because I felt that I had all of the things needed, along with the continuing to learn more.
It sounds like you're an observer, maybe by nature. Would you categorize yourself that way? Yeah,
I tell people all the time, not much gets past me. Like, I literally will pay attention, and I talk a lot. People tell you, yeah, man, Nick, he'll talk your head off, man. He loves to try to come and talk to people and etc. But I really watch and observe my peers and how they move and operate. Even right now, even with the program that we have now at Southeastern, how when we're in the infields at nationals and things like that, I really watch some of the other coaches, whether they're a powerhouse or not, how they operate with their team, how they operate with the athletic trainers, any support staff, how they operate when they talk to their team, if they get in like that team setting, or if we're in the hotel and someone has the conference room reserved before us. I found myself not sneaking to hear what they're saying. Just if the door is open, like I want to hear how this coach operates with his team, and maybe there's some things that I can do better.
Where does that I don't know that that's a learned trait, right? Like, no one ever sat you down and said, hey, I assume no one ever sat you down and said, hey, when you're around other people, shut your mouth and pay attention, right? But that observer mentality, that's a real, like, educational, like, I'm a sponge, I want to learn. When you think about that, where does that come from? Is that a trait, like, from maybe mom and dad, or a family member, or an English teacher? I mean, where does that trait of, like, okay, pay attention to your surroundings, and actually, like, observe's a good word, right? So I can watch someone, but I don't soak it in, right? But observe is like, oh, I'm bringing this in, and I'm calculating, X's and O's off of that.
Yeah, I got that from my mom for sure.
Is that right?
She's always operated that way, and We're just always been observant. I'm from the South, so we've just always observed how everybody moves, talks. We're used to speaking to everybody. Like for me, you don't want anything bad to happen, but let's say we were at a gas station. I walk in the store. I find myself, if I'm just going to get a drink, I'm counting how many people's in the store. Like, I don't, in case anything happens, I'm remembering face. Oh yeah, that guy had on some Batman socks. He had some black pants on, etc. It's just normal for me to move that way. And it's not moving in fear. It's just, it's like a weird trait, but a good trait. It just naturally just happens.
Was mom a teacher or coach or?
No, she did physical therapy.
Yeah. Okay.
She did work with a lot of like patients or student athletes and etc.
Yeah.
So I guess she just had an opportunity to really observe a lot of different people and their different personalities as well.
Well, in physical therapy is a lot of questioning, right? Like, hey, so how did this happen? What does it feel like when you do that? Like, it's less actually telling you, okay, now here, do this stretch or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of questioning and so therefore observing and digesting what the person actually says, not just, I'm not actually listening to you. I just had to ask you a question. Like, it's actually like, oh, okay. So if they did that, well, I better ask this off of that, that kind of thing. That's interesting. That's interesting. So you walk into Pete's office and you're like, hey man, you ain't going nowhere. And I'm 3 years in this. I'm an expert now. So I want to be a head coach. What happens next?
So, I talked with him about it and he was very supportive of it. He agreed with me. That he thought that I was ready, but he did tell me to, make sure, you feel that you're getting the job that's best for you as well. He said, just because there's head coaching vacancies open, don't mean that those are really good jobs. You need to really take a look at that university and their direction and maybe the athletic director and the turnover rate in that department. He did give me some good advice.
Yeah, he did.
Look at as well.
And are you married or family at this point, or is it still just single?
No, I had two little girls, but I was, I had a girlfriend at the time, which is my wife at the time. And what was cool is she ended up going to grad school and getting her master's in applied behavior analysis at Florida Tech as well. They had an autism. She works with kids with autism. So she's a clinical director now at an autism clinic, but they had a clinic on the campus at Florida Tech.
Why am I not interviewing her? This seems like a powerhouse here. Holy cow. And I already know you don't know listening, but she was a track athlete as well, right? Yeah. At the world's worst college though. So I went to the world's best, Troy University. And the rivalry is not there anymore because the whole 1A, 1AA thing. That's right. I'm old school. I still call it 1AA. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care about this FCS, FBS. It's 1A and 1AA to me. But we had a huge rivalry, like the Florida State, the Alabama Auburn. It was Troy and Jacksonville State. Whoop Jack State, right? In fact, one of my coaches during my Rush Probst year was John Gross, who just recently resigned from Jacksonville State and did a great job. Took him to the national title game and the whole nine. But Nick's wife went to Jack State. She obviously must be smart because she has overcome that degree that she got from Jacksonville State. That'll hold you back, but she seems to have really overcome this foothold back holding her back.
She was a dog, man. She was Ohio Valley Conference champion 400 hurdles in college at Jack State. And,
she was a long hurdler too. That's how you guys know each other, right? You're like, you have a lot of in common. Yeah, that's so cool.
It was cool too because this past year she won the USATF Masters National Championship in the 400 hurdles up in Iowa State. So, yeah, she's still trained. She trains with our team. So
wow, that actually makes me question her intelligence. Not only the Jack State decision, but it's like you got to be done, man. This hurts too much to be doing this as a mom and at our age. Get out of here.
After she had our daughter, our daughter Aspen, who just turned 2 in October. She was born October 2nd, 2019. Her goal was to, get back to a fitness shape where she felt good about herself. And I told her, I said, well, why don't you just try to maybe get back to training, just some light training. You don't have to be full time, like you're finna go compete. And so she was training with our team and she's getting in reps with our team. And I remind you, she's in the group with my girls 4x4. My girls 4x4 won a national championship this past year. So it ain't no slouches. They're legit. And I mean, I got the national runner-up 400 hurdle girl on my team. So she's not going to get a bunch of slouches.
Right.
she's finding herself in reps with them for whole workouts for like a month, and like literally can go with them the entire time, no stopping. And I'm looking like, what? Like, this is after, having our daughter.
Yeah.
And so she's like, so I brought it up to her. I said, well, here's a way where maybe we can continue to spend more time together, because I'm traveling, I'm recruiting.
I was about to say, you're recruiting her. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. So I said, how about we do this? If you practice with our team and be able to travel with us and run competitions, you're in the team setting, but we get to spend time together as well. You're not just stuck at home. I'm going to meets. And so we did, and we didn't know we'd win a national championship this year off of it though. And we did. And so it was really just cool to see her accomplish those things. And I was just really proud of her.
What's your wife's first name?
Latasha,
shout out to you, man. I mean, you let this guy sucker you into continue to competing, man. But you had the payoff. So more time together as a husband and wife, that's always positive. And then you win a stinking national title, man. That's amazing. That's so cool. And Latasha, I'm just so sorry about your college degree. It's not, I'm sure you don't even like mine. I hang up on my wall because I'm very, very proud. I'm sure yours is in the basement or something. I get it.
You'll see this. You're gonna laugh.
I get it. All right. So back to Pete. You tell him I want to be a head coach. Pete gives you a lot of really, really good advice, man. Like, I love how Pete like poured into you here. It seems like not laughed at you, not like, yeah, whatever, kid, you're 3 years in, whatever, man. So what was the next step? What'd you do?
Yeah. So I found a position at Brewton-Parker College. Is in Mount Vernon, Georgia. Well, I'm originally from South Georgia, so it was going to put me a little bit closer to home. I can be able to see family a little bit more frequently. I mean, it was sad I had to leave the beach because I was in Melbourne, right off the Space Coast.
Oh, yeah.
It was. But, I was a country boy at heart, though, man. So seeing cornfields and cotton fields and things like that was just my nature. I enjoyed the smelling the burn in the air in the fall when it's so cold outside. That's just what I was accustomed to, and not like beach and city life. So I just wanted to get back a little bit closer to home. Took the job at Brewton-Parker. And we had some little bit of success early. I wasn't there, but maybe 8 or 9 months or so. But it was a good experience. What led me away from there was a really good job opportunity at Loyola University, New Orleans came up. And it was going to put me in a conference that was in the, it was in the SSAC as well as Brewton-Parker. But I just thought it was going to be a little bit better situation. Also, too, the departure from Brewton-Parker is because my wife works with children with autism, and she's a clinical director, and they didn't have those type of resources in the area. We tried to be able to maybe do some things from Savannah, it was still going to be an hour and 20 commute, but those things didn't work out, and she was going to take a major pay cut as well. And so that kind of led me away from Brewton-Parker. So I didn't just leave Brewton-Parker because I didn't like it.
Right. Were you the head coach at Brewton-Parker?
Correct.
Okay. And then when you went to Loyola down in New Orleans, were you the head coach down there as well?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, and I love, we talk about, you talked about the opportunity of Loyola, not only, it's in New Orleans and the program, et cetera, but the decision that played into the decision probably, right? But a lot of the decision had to be with the family and, the wife's career as well. And what are we going to do as a family unit? So that's extremely important. Like, there's no apologies to be made in regards to being at a place for 9 months or 9 years when it's the decision's like, hey, this is what's I believe is, we don't know until the future, right? But I believe this is best for my family. That probably should be more of the number one on your checklist of why we're looking for different jobs. Should be not just, a paycheck obviously is extremely important. You got to get paid, and I've said it probably on every show we've ever had here. Our track coaches, collegiately and high school, need to be paid more. And I know all my pro coaches were like, yeah, us too. And you're right, you too. But that also has to play into it. But the family, like, hey, what's best for my family? That has to be, it should be, I should say, number one for sure.
Yeah, and the Brewton-Parker people, they were I still got great relationships with them today, because we built good relationships and we didn't leave on bad terms or nothing like that. There was no secret, I went and told them like, this is what the situation is, and then that's always good because you never know when you have to cross those bridges ever again.
Amen. That's right. So how was it at Loyola, and how long did you spend there?
So Loyola was great. We had a lot of success early. Took that program to runner-up in the conference on the girls' side after, they were just okay. It's kind of bottom tier, beforehand. And we had their first NAIA All-American when I was there. It was a multi and the heptathlon, a female. She did really well. Had a bunch of individual conference champions. I mean, it went really, really good. Wow. Cross country went well. Had runner of the year in cross country. So we were seeing a lot of success. I stayed there 2 years, and I was planning to actually be there long term. Mm-hmm. And then Southeastern came up, and mm-hmm. Southeastern was kind of a no-brainer, and not because of the location or anything, because I have a good with the Loyola people still, and they were really sad to see me go because we did really well. Not just me, man. I had a good staff, had a really good assistant coach, and I was able to help her, and she ended up getting a job up in South Dakota as a head coach. So, and she came to me as a GA. So I gave her first chance, just like someone gave me mine. She was just a graduate assistant. Mm-hmm. And so it was just cool that I was able to, do that and help her along the way. And so, but Southeastern came up about starting a program. And the first thing I thought about was Coach Byrd. I gave him a call and I said, Coach Byrd, I've been doing this for a little while now and I've seen some success, but I really want to test myself as a coach, my patience, everything. Because they want to start a program from scratch. Like they want to start, and I'm talking about where I get to be the head coach starting from scratch. And that's where I was kind of up for the challenge. And that's how I ended up at Southeastern.
And tell me, what city is Southeastern in?
Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm noticing a little bit of a theme here throughout your career up to this point at Southeastern, kind of twofold. One is you go to an NAIA school, you coach. I know Florida Tech wasn't NAIA, but Brewton-Parker.
Yeah,
it is. It was and is. Loyola New Orleans is NAIA, and now Southeastern is NAIA. Is that does that play into it at all with you? Or are you like a you've already talked to, and I could tell you're passionate about NAIA in regards to the organization and the level of competition specifically for track and field. But does that specifically play into it? Like, are you kind of like, yeah, I'm an NAIA guy at heart?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to being in other divisions. I mean, I've had even Division I offers and things like that. What I love about the NAIA is I feel like I can pour more into my student athletes, and I don't have to have a roster size that's drastically huge. Like I don't have to have 150 kids. Okay. My AD is very supportive where I can have a good 80 to 85 and he's good and it's manageable with the staff that I have because I'm big on relationships. Man, my staff will tell you, and this is, like I said, this is recorded, so they'll know this is no lie here. If you can't be on my staff, if you're not willing to pour into our student athletes and build personal relationships with them that are going to last a lifetime, because the championships will eventually be faded and not remembered. But what you poured into that student athlete or student athletes will be. And so we want to be able to be that dad or that mom to the kids that don't have that. We have kids on our team that don't have either. And so we're that when they're here for the 8 to 9 months. We're the ones that are having to look out for them. We're the ones that are going to call if they get into any trouble. And so we want them to be able to call us because they trust us, because of the relationship we built with them, and not because, well, I got in trouble and I just got to call my coach, hope they don't take the scholarship. We don't want them to think that way. We know that there's going to be some consequences for some things, but we want them to call us because they feel that the relationship is there to do that. And that's what we kind of build the program. And I feel that the NAIA, because of what their beliefs are and their character traits, I can do that. And I'm big in my faith too. And Southeastern's a Christian school, and that's welcome there. Right. And so I'm able to do that and have Bible study every week and things like that.
The other theme that I'm noticing is this build from scratch type attitude. You go to Shorter, you're the first signee there. There is no program. You help build the program and even take it with the help of teammates and coaches to a national title. You go to Florida Tech. There's no track program. You're basically responsible for helping build that side up with Coach Pete. Brewton-Parker, I think, had a program, and Loyola New Orleans, I think, certainly had a program. But then you get this call, and it's amazing. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the rewind button and go look when he said this opportunity. He said this amazing opportunity came up in Southeastern. His eyes lit up. Like there was something about not only, Lakeland's beautiful and it's another NAIA program, so that's cool, kind of, works in your mojo for what you've been doing in your career. But your eyes lit up when you were talking about and I get to start from scratch. They want to build from scratch. I called Scott Byrd, talked to him about it, and then like, yep, we went for it. What is it about, building a program is different than taking over a program, whether that program is very successful or not. Like even a rebuild is different than a new build, right? What is it about that clean slate? There is no history to recruit on, to look on. There's no past coach to get advice from. You're building the playbook from chapter one. You're starting from scratch. What is it about that, Nick, that kind of gets your juices going? Like that's what you get excited about?
Yeah, I think, what really got me excited was the recruiting aspect. And the reason why I say that is because when we're starting from scratch, I have my beliefs and my mold for my program and what I want and how I want it done. And I think what helped us was when we brought these athletes in, they understood that in recruiting. So they knew what they were getting themselves into, where we didn't have to come into a program. And I know people take over new jobs and et cetera. And sometimes it can be tough because you coming in and you're trying to make changes and they're like, well, this has worked for us before. New coach trying to do this. For me, what we brought in, that's what they understood from the start. So as we kept bringing in new student athletes, the ones that we brought in first became our leaders, and they were pouring into the new kids saying, this is how Coach Dodson operates. This is what he does. This is what he expects. So then now we have developed what we call tradition never graduates. So once they're out the door, we just keep recycling what we've done with our new student athletes to keep moving forward. And that's what made me excited about being able to start it from scratch. And also too, I was in their shoes at one point. So I felt like I was overlooked in recruiting. I felt that many people didn't give me a chance. People came around when they thought that it was convenient later because I started to do well. And I had a person like Scott Byrd say, look, man, I'm not worried about how many state championships you won. I've talked to people about you, and I think that you'll be a great fit for us. And that's kind of how we recruited. We signed a bunch of kids that nobody wanted. Our signees, they'll listen to this. They'll know the ones that are about to graduate. We signed a bunch of kids that nobody wanted. And these same kids have now became national champions, whether in their individual events or now we've got a top 5 program nationally in the NAIA with both the men and the women. And it was a bunch of kids that nobody wanted, whether they were in single A private or single A public or, double A, 6A, whatever. We've gotten a lot of those lower classification kids that didn't get a lot of looks, and they came in, they worked their butt off and been consistent in the classroom, and they're showing.
So 2 things you've broken there. I'm going to address one, then I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to challenge you on one. First of all, I love that your attitude of like, it seems like you like to look at a blank slate and write the history, not look at history and continue it or change it, etc. I just like that. That's writing your own story. That's amazing to me. I love that. Yeah. Now let's talk about this. Your words, a bunch of kids that no one wanted. So when you said you graduated in 06, I think, right? Is that what you said? So in 06, I had a hard time believing I coached for 10 years and I was a much better recruiter than I was a coach. That ain't saying much because I wasn't that great of a coach, but I was a really good recruiter in my opinion. I got a lot of kids signed at my places that other people thought they were going to get. Okay. That's my small brag for the moment. Okay. But back in, 05 was my last season. So 05, you're a junior. I'm still coaching. I'm coaching in the SEC. It's fairly easy for me to find, air quotes here, everyone. Like I got die-stat back then, right? I see everybody. It was hard for someone to be overlooked. Now, fast forward, how many years have you been at Southeastern?
I got there in 2018.
Perfect. So in the last 3 years, so 2018. Now, especially with these things right here, social media, which I didn't coach in the era of social media, thank God. With social media, internet, I have a hard time. I'm challenging you. So you hit me back here now.
Yeah.
Come with your facts though. How is someone overlooked today? The only way I can find someone, when you say these are a bunch of kids and they did awesome, and we're going to talk about the successes that you had, because you have certainly had your successes. I'm not taking let's clear the air that my man Nick here hasn't taken a bunch of kids that no one wants and they're a solid program. They're a really, like you said, top 5. They're a really good program. So the only way that I can define when you say these are kids that maybe no one else was looking at, like you were back in the day, is that they're not very good at a high school. Giving the example that there are 70 and 75-second quarter milers on the girl side. And that's why no one else was signing them. And you've taken a 75-second quarter miler and made her a 55 or a 54 or 53, whatever it would take there on that level. That's amazing, by the way. I mean, like I would have all props for that. So I want to challenge this, that no one else looked at them. Seriously, you have a bunch of good kids. You're telling me that, and I know there was a little hyperbole maybe there, right? But you're telling me that these kids did not have 4 other, we typically get 5 visits, right? You're telling me these kids did not have 4 other scholarship offers, the majority of them. Obviously, you got some studs and things like that. You're really telling me that?
Yeah. I mean, and our 4x4, and I'll give you a story. I'll give you a quick story on how we would get them. Man, God was sitting them, putting right on my plate, man. Like he really was. So we were getting one kid. So we started off, and we'll just go with the girls real quick, and it's real quick. Mm-hmm. So our national runner-up 4 on the hurdler, she's been 2-time national runner-up. Out of high school, she was barely running 58. She was like 58 high, somewhere in that area. The girls
in the open quarter.
In open quarter.
All right, because if you're going to say 300 hurdlers, I was going to say, okay, you're on the right track. If you sign a 58 300 hurdler, that's someone no one's looking at. Okay, 58. Yeah, get out of here. 58 quarter. Yeah,
she's running 58 in the quarter. Okay. And it was like 58 high. She's already ran 55 low for us. And so she wasn't getting a lot of offers.
Yeah, but okay, but that's now that you're telling me, that story tells me immediately good coaching. I absolutely. All right. Okay. Good coaching. You take a 58 down to a 55. Bravo, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I see who gets signed. Like I still pay attention to what kids, what times are getting signed. And certainly there's some amazing 53s and stuff like that are getting signed by the, whatever you want to call the big dogs are and whatnot. Right. But a 58 second quarter high school athlete, I know they're getting looks from other people. They have to be.
You think it just depends on, I guess it also depends too, because we had a lot of kids with some different unique majors that some didn't have too. And so
okay, that's different.
Look at a lot of the and maybe financially those certain packages didn't work for them. So when we went through, and I was just curious. So our girls 4x4 that won national championship this past year, there's 4 girls on there. Out of the 4 girls total, there was 4 offers total out of all of them that they had. 4 offers total out of 4 girls. That's all I had. And one of them that I offered, I was legit her only offer. That one.
And you're not saying when you say offer, you're not saying, oh, I was the only one who offered her a full ride. Other people were offering her quarters, but I offered a full. You're saying offer.
Offered. Yeah.
And you talked about the majors, and that makes sense. We had new head coach of San Jose State University where was he? I think he was at La Tech when we sat down with him, I think. No, that's not right. I can't remember where he was. Sorry, Chuck. But Chuck was the head coach of Art University in San Francisco. My memory's getting terrible. We had him on the podcast, and he talked about the same because they won a Division II national title there, and a lot of them were kids that wanted to major in something that just the quote unquote traditional college didn't have, right?
Yeah.
So that makes sense in regards to that. Yeah. So what is it then? Because, okay, let's take this young lady that went 58 down to sub 55. There are, Nick, I talk to coaches every day, right? I mean, and I do deep dives as I'm blessed to be the host here of the Gill podcast. There's so many coaches out there. So what was it? Why did other coaches not see this young lady and see the potential that you did, or see a 58 and say, hey, I'll take a 58. I mean, that's, that'll do me good right here in my conference, right? What is it? What is it that coaches are missing?
Well, I think too, and when I say this, because I was talking to some of our student athletes about it, and I don't think that, I have a little chip on my shoulder. So when I say that nobody really wanted them, I don't really mean no one really wanted them. They just didn't have the offers to show for it.
Okay, so that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
If that makes sense. I think here's the issue. Go look at how many athletes that are out there that run track in each state, and then go look at how many coaches and universities it is. There's a much, much bigger number for how many athletes are trying to be recruited or want to be recruited.
Agreed.
So I think maybe some just get overlooked accidentally.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are roughly 15,000-ish high school programs and roughly 1,300, let's call it 1,500 collegiate programs.
Yeah.
So that's a 10-to-1 ratio on programs, and then you expand it out to the number of kids. Agreed. Okay, I appreciate that. That
I
makes.
think that plays a huge part into it because, and I found it myself. There was a kid that they found me on Twitter, and they were literally in my state, and I'm like, how did I not know about this kid?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we work mile split very well. You know, we're on Twitter. I mean, you see us, we're active on Twitter, and we're like, how did we miss this kid? And, you know, one of our rivals in our conference was talking to him and et cetera. And then so we end up started talking to him as well. Because the only reason why I knew about him because they slid in my inbox. And I'm like, oh, wow. But how did I not know about this kid? And I think it's just like there's so many kids out there. And once we start getting locked in on about 4 or 5 that we're really pouring into, depending on what our needs are in our program, and we're like, hey, out of this 4 or 5, ain't no way I ain't getting 2 of these at least, you know. And I think the others just get overlooked because once we grab those 2, it's over with, you know.
Right. And that's a great point. Like, not you know, I'm not attacking anybody here, but not attacking any individual coach, right? Because you're right that you're one person. I mean, throughout the country, literally there's like 1 million track athletes, high school, right? And then you start putting down to your own event groups and then your own region, because typically you're more region focused and state focused than you are domestically, the whole 40, 50 states. So I get any one coach could not know, like you're talking about, like, how did I not know that girl? She's right here, right? But but that's where it just boggles me that there's so many coaches and there's so in social media, and I'm huge on social media. So maybe I have a bias because I'm on social media and I see what you guys do and what you do on social media. And I see Adam, the head coach of Brewton-Parker now, I see what he does. And it's like, man, everybody is hustling. They're working. How does anybody fall through the cracks today? It just boggles me. Okay, I'll let you off the hot seat there, man. Thanks for letting me challenge you there. So talk to me about Southeastern. You get to Lakeland. It's brand new, right? So there's no program, no coaches, right? So you've got to build everything, maybe the budget, the staff, recruiting. Talk to me about how that went the first year.
Now, they did have cross country, and they had a really good distance coach named Paul Kurtz, and he's still on our staff right now. Cool. He did a really good job with them. So they kind of had a vision, but they had nothing else. I'm talking about no gear with their name on it that says track, no athletes outside the distance.
No facilities, I assume, as well then?
Facilities. You know, we're looking into building a facility now. But we still don't currently have one, so we didn't have anything. And so we got there, and I said, you know what? The first thing that we can definitely sell is the location. We're 30 minutes from Disney World. We're not far from the beach. You know, what can we sell to get this thing kind of going? And so I talked to my AD. I said, look, what do I got to do to get another assistant? He told me how many numbers I needed to bring in. So that first year, I brought him in all by myself because I didn't have nobody else to help me if I was going to get another assistant.
But you strike me as the kind of guy that likes that goal. Like, okay, you need to have X number of kids on the team. Bam. Okay. Every time I sign a kid or I get a kid to walk on, that's one more step towards that goal of getting another assistant.
Yeah, it's sort of like for me, like it's crazy thing. My wife was like, man, you're so competitive. Like I'll put the GPS on in the car. It tells them I get there at 10:15. Now I say I can shave 5.
I got that. Yeah, that's just a challenge. That's not. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. It's like
10:15. It's on. Yeah. I'm with you.
He told me, he's like, look, you get this amount of numbers, you know, we'll get you an assistant. But he said, now remind you, my first day on the job wasn't until May 2nd, 2018.
Most kids know where they're going probably at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So when he told me that, I'm like, hey, but I'm up for the challenge. You know, I'm up for the challenge. Let's see what I can do with it. Because I knew I really needed another assistant, but I also wanted to challenge myself as well and see if I could really bring in quality numbers, not just any numbers. I turned down a lot of kids too.
Right.
I turned down a bunch because I didn't want to start the program off with, you know, any cancers or any kids that I didn't feel that was going to fit the model that I was looking for, because this is for us to help grow long-term, if that makes sense. And so I said, okay, I didn't just settle for, and I think my AD knew that too. I didn't just settle for just any numbers. We got what we thought were quality numbers for us in the program, so that when we look at this thing 4 years from now, those signees played a big part of what we're doing currently.
Right. Not just participants, like they actually performed.
Exactly. And to be honest, it really worked out, because the national championship that we won in the girls 4x4 this year, three of those girls were 3 of the top 5 signees that we signed.
Oh, wow.
We brought in one extra girl the next year that made a difference for us that we thought would help get us up. But those three were part of that. Our two national runner-up 110 hurdlers, we went second and third at nationals this year in the 110s. Well, our top guy went 1385. We got a 1385, 1394, 1396. But they all never ran 13 in high school.
I was about to say, what were those kids running? I have to assume you're not getting sub 14 kids.
Yeah, they never,
school. Sorry, I could be wrong there, but
and there's times that we're close to getting them and signing, but then those guys are running 14.4, 14.5 out of high school. When they're running 13.8, 13.9 on the college highs.
It's times like this that I do wish we talked about X's and O's, specifically because it's hurdles. But that fascinates me, that 14.5 over 39s, and you're getting down to sub 14s over 40. That's amazing. You need to be on. I'm gonna have to get you on like either Ryan Banta's show or who's another good one, man? Andrew McGee. You gotta get on one of the shows that do talk about X's and O's, because that's a skill set there, man. 14.5, because again, remember it's a different event. It's the same 110 meters, but it's 39 to 42. So to get 14.5s down to sub 14s, everybody will be listening to that. So we got to figure out a way to get you on one of those shows and learn your quote unquote secrets, right? Because they're not really secrets, right?
The thing is too, man, I get a lot of credit, but man, those kids work their butt off too. And you know, if they don't put the work in and do what's necessary even off the track, these things don't happen. I tell them, you know, just your grades alone. If you know you're struggling in the classroom, you've added unnecessary stress to your plate that's going to now affect your performance when you come through the gate. And so all of that plays a lot into it. And so, but we've been able to produce these type of performances and times and et cetera with kids that, you know, we either felt were overlooked or they didn't have the times to maybe go, you know, mid D1 or, you know, Power 5 Division 1 or whatever it may be. And then now they're running times where it's like, man, you know, we get invited to go to Clemson now or Miami. And so, you know, we had a great show in Miami, invited us to come down to their meet last year. We ran on ESPN on the ACC network, and the commentators gave us a shout out. We were the smallest school there. They said, we have to give it to Southeastern. You know, they're holding their weight down here. And it's because those kids really work their butt off. But I wanted to put them in an environment where they know that they're competitive, you know, and so that's why we appreciate the Coach Dana Boones from UCF and Coach Eric Jenkins from USF, because whenever I reach out to them, they always let us come.
Yeah.
They always let us come because they feel that we are competitive, but it's good for the sport. And so, and they see that what we have on our roster, and it's also helping them get better as well when we're at the competitions, because we're competing against them too.
And those two are just great people, by the way. Dana, I've had on the podcast. I got to get Eric on the podcast. Another great guy who is going to do amazing at South Florida as he continues to build his culture. Yeah, he's going to do it. I know everybody in Florida is kind of holding their breath because it's like, you know, Eric's a winner. I mean, it's literally just a matter of time with him as he grabs his culture through the Bulls there. So talk to us about, you said you started at the 2018 season.
Yeah, well, 2019 was my first season.
Got it.
18, I got there in May 2nd of 18, so the season was really over.
Gotcha. So 19, 20, 21. So we're going into our fourth season here. And obviously, you know, the craziest 4 years, you never could have imagined all the things that would have gone on in the last 4 years. Noting some of the obvious stuff with COVID, et cetera, what are some of the, you know, when you look back over 4 years and the successes that you are having, what have been like the things that have surprised you the most about being a head coach of a new program at Southeastern?
Really just the amount of quality numbers that we've got in and we've been able to, you know, keep those kids, because our goal is, you know, when we bring you to our program, we're hoping that we feel that this program is for you and that you feel that this is your future and you can get your education here, you can learn here. We don't want you to transfer. So we want to keep a very, very low transfer rate. Now, we know it's not going to be a perfect rate because the program's not for everybody. Or we feel that we thought that this student athlete would be a great fit for us and they end up not being a good fit for us. So we get that. But we want to keep that number extremely, extremely low. And quite surprisingly, since I've gotten to Southeastern, it's been really good. And not surprising because it's a bad thing, but, you know, Southeastern is also a Christian school. And so, you know, what the expectations are with the university and as well as my expectations, you know, we want to feel like we're getting the kids that are going to fit those molds so that they can be set up for success. If you put a kid in that environment that's not their mold and that's not their direction, you're setting them up for failure. You know, in all honesty, especially if you just try to keep them around, you know, because that's not their environment, that's not what they're looking for, and they're going to rebel against it. And so we feel that we've brought the kids that the university is looking for. Our staff has done a really good job of bringing those kids in and consistently keeping them there. And so that's been the huge surpriser for me.
And looking into your crystal ball here, knowing your nature of what we talked about, you know, building programs from scratch, how do you, as you go into your fourth year and we look 10 years down the line, so let's say it's 2020, I went to school in Alabama, so what's that math? 2028. Let's round it up. Let's say it's 2030.
Yeah.
You've been at Southeastern for over a decade. The record books, all, you know, your top 10 list or every one of the athletes you and your staff have coached. You've hired all the coaches that have coached those great athletes. Maybe by then you've won a national title, things like that. How do you think you can keep yourself motivated? Because it's not a new program anymore, right? Now it's a different goal set to build a program than it is to maintain and incrementally grow, right? You're going to eventually be top 10 consistently as a team. Well, then the goal is how do I get to top 5? How do I win the national title, et cetera? How do you think you're going to keep yourself motivated for that? Or is it just a simple fact of like, oh yeah, Nick will just be going to a different school after 6, 7, 8 year, whatever, you know?
Yeah, I think the motivation for me, number one, it's going to be tough to get me away from this program because it means something to me because I started it as a head coach.
Oh, yeah. It's your baby. Yeah. No, not to take away from your actual babies, you know, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so even if I did leave, I'll find myself on their webpage all the time, just seeing how things are going with the program, et cetera, because I know where it was when I was hired and I know where it was when I left. You know what I mean? So it's going to mean something to me. But I think for me, what's going to keep me motivated years over time is I feel like what we do within our program and the type of kids we bring in, the championships are going to be there. And that's not saying in a bragging tip. We tell the kids all the time, you do what you're supposed to do. We're going to be there at the end. Like we expect that. I think what's going to keep me motivated is me challenging myself to have the highest graduation rate every year within our athletic department. Me trying to make sure that I'm making a difference in these kids' life, making sure I'm putting degrees in hands. I'm counting up how many first generation kids that we're having from the time we started to now. I have an Excel sheet of this type of stuff. Like that's the type of stuff that is going to motivate me in 2030, because I'm going to feel that, like you said, the championships are going to be there. We've won. We've done that. We want to continue doing that. But what else are we doing? Are we still maintaining the highest academic GPA in our conference? Are we still maintaining the highest amount of academic all-conference, academic all-American selections in our conference? We went from having a total of 10 first-generation athletes from 2018 to 2023, but now from 2025, 2030, we're up to 30 first generations. And did we graduate all of them? Like those are going to be the type of goals that are going to keep me motivated as the years keep going, because I feel that God put me in this position. It was my calling to be able to use my story and my energy to help get these kids to the position that they want to be at in life. And also make sure that we try to not allow them to become a statistic, like not a negative statistic. You know, we tell these kids all the time, look, especially you first generation kids, it is extremely important that you graduate. Well, why, coach? Because there are people coming behind you. And the ones that are coming behind you, if you didn't finish for whatever reason, or you end up back home, you got in trouble, they're going to be like, well, such and such went to college. It just wasn't for them. So, and so then now we're already setting maybe a negative mindset in the brains of those behind you before they even got a chance to come experience what college is and what it can do for you. So those are the type of things that's going to keep me motivated 2030 and above.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, you know, that analogy I used about your attitude of that clean slate and writing your history of the program. That seems to be a pretty big driver, because what you just described there with the athletes is, hey, first generational athletes, instead of being held back by chains of the past, like you get to, here's your clean slate. Like here, you know, my thing's a clean slate. I'm going to give you your clean slate now. Start that story by graduating college and be an example for your family and the kids and family that you're going to grow, et cetera, and write your own history. That's a pretty big Like, I ain't the brightest guy in the world, but that's a pretty big theme for you, man. I love that. That's really cool. Nick, as we start to wrap up, I got two more questions for you here, two more topics to talk about real quick. One is, I love you. I think if we were to count it up, I think you've used the word we over me at a 10-to-1 ratio. Maybe give a shout out to the staff that you have there at Southeastern now. You mentioned your distance coach. Maybe start with him, and who are the other coaches that have helped you there at Southeastern?
Yeah. So Coach Paul Kurtz, he's our distance coach, our head cross country coach, done a really good job for us. Just really cool to be able to work with him every day. Coach Chester Hightower, who's my sprint coach and my 4x1 sprints coach, he's done an excellent job for us. And then my our throws coach and our multis coach, Coach Mike Lambert, he's been really huge for us because we've had to get really creative with creating lifted runways and things that we do since we don't have a facility, and being able to put our kids in the best position to be successful. And then of course my wife, because she's the only female, and she plays a big part in our program as well, and gives those girls on the team a voice to go to outside of us males, even though our females are very close with us, because all of them, male coaches pretty much have daughters. So we're pretty close with the girls on the team, but it also gives them someone else to go to that maybe understands what they went through, because she's an athlete doing it and still doing it. So we just been blessed to have what we have. What's cool is the age differences on our team. So like our distance coach, he's like in the late 50-ish area, headed towards the 60s. Coach Lambert is much older than all of us. He's like in the 60s, headed towards the 70s area. And then I'll be 34 in March, and then Coach Hightower will be 33 in January. And so we listen to them and get some of the old school stuff. So our meetings are pretty cool because like they had to get used to the social media thing. That's just not how they operated, and that's what we did. But then we also looked at some of the things that they did back in their coaching days, because both of them, Coach Kurtz has been a head coach and still is cross country. Coach Lambert's been a head coach before. I'm now the boss, and so I'm learning from them and taking some of the things they did in their era and see what would work for us. And I'm taking some of the things we do currently and it's working for them. So it's just crazy how the ages are so far away from each other, but we work so well together.
What I love about that is, Nick, at your age and stage, you've been coaching for roughly 10 years, a little bit longer. But you're an experienced head coach at this point, obviously still learning, but you've got some chops behind you from experiences, right? And then you talk about these other two coaches that are 30 years longer in the tooth than you coaching. What I love about that is, sometimes we can get the mindset at a 35, 40-year-old, even sometimes 50 years old, of like, oh, I'm set in my ways, and I've been doing this for so long. I'm almost near the end of my career. Dude, you've got two guys at least are out there in front of you that have coached for 30 more years on top of your age. Like you've heard me say this before in the podcast, Nick Dodson, you're barely at halftime. If this is a 400 hurdle race, you're not even at hurdle number 5.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing the experiences that you have. And you're like, oh, I'm still a rookie. And like, if you can keep that kind of mindset and mentality, that's what helps you continue to always go to coaches education things, always pick the brain. We're going to be, actually, when you're listening to this right now, we're at Orlando for the USTF CCCA convention. That's the type of mentality that keeps you going to these clinics. The topic, sitting down. One of the guys that I'm always most impressed with is Carl Lewis. Carl's Carl. I mean, come on, you're Carl freaking Lewis, right? He could easily not talk to anybody, right? I mean, he could be like, yeah, I'm busy, right? Every clinic I've ever seen him, from the TTFCA to the USTF CCCA, he always takes so much time talking to younger coaches. It's really quite admirable. Like, I'm so impressed with him on that. But that type of mentality of like, dude, yeah, I'm 35 and I'm head coach, and guess what? I don't know nothing. Like, I'm still that sponge that we talked about, man. So I love that, man. I love that. Speaking of that, since we're, if you're listening right now, maybe you're at the USTF CCCA convention, which is one of my favorite times of the whole year. I'm so glad that we're back. We're back, baby. We're back.
Yep.
But so on Friday, you have you got a special plan on Friday of this week, don't you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll be officially inducted into the NAIA Hall of Fame for my accomplishments as a student athlete. And so, it's a blessing.
When you told me you were getting inducted to the NAIA Hall of Fame, I was like, man, it must not be that hard. And here's what I meant by that. I was like, man, my guy here hasn't been coaching for that long. They're already inducting him into the Hall of Fame as a coach. Like, that don't seem right.
Yeah.
As you were talking about your athletic accomplishment, I was like, oh, okay, it's just an athlete. Now, one day you keep at it, you're going to be back in as a coach. Yeah. But definitely your athletic history lends itself to being in the NAIA Hall of Fame. You know how many, man, you were in some exclusive clubs. You know how many people are in Hall of Fames?
Yeah, man, it was, I mean, and to make it into like a collegiate Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, because there's like people like Brian Clay, who's Olympic champion. He went to South Pacific. Right. He's in the NAIA Hall of Fame. I saw him be inducted when I was at the 2010 Nationals. And I can honestly say I never dreamed a million years about even trying to go to the Hall of Fame. I just wanted to make it out of South Georgia and make my family proud. And you know, and accomplishments just kind of came. But, you know, to you look back on it, and Coach Byrd was telling me, he said, you know, by them doing this, what they're saying is you're one of the greatest hurdlers in the history of the NAIA. And I'm like, man, you know, you're talking about history. You know, school records are different. You know, you're one of the best at your school, and that's pretty cool. And I have our shorter school record. But man, when he told me that, and he said it the way he said it, and it came from him, who you know, who believed in me, and boy, we had some tough times too at practice, because there's times he said, you just don't get it, do you? And, you know, and then you look back on all that, and you have your coach, who's your mentor, tell you that it's a testament to, you know, my hard work, but also too, I had a lot of people in my corner. A lot of people had their fingerprints on my journey, and I'm just really proud to be able to share this moment with them.
Do you actually get to do a speech, like an acceptance speech? Yeah. So normally in a lot of speeches, you thank the people that brought you there, right? Who were the top three people you're going to be thanking? I think I can guess all three, but I know I'm a gambler, so I know I can bet on one. The top three people, I get Scott Byrd's one of those three. Okay. Who are the other two?
Definitely my mom.
I knew it. Okay. I'm 2 for 2. Who's the third one? You better write this speech, man. It ain't that long from now.
Yeah. I actually started working on it a little bit. And my dad definitely played a huge part as well, because I had both my parents in my life, and that's a blessing for sure. They've 100%. Been married just as long as I've been around. And so they played a huge part. So I would go with those three.
Awesome.
For sure. But I mean, I probably got a strong 5, because we had a really good athletic director. I met my wife around my senior year, so that went really good. And so she played a big part.
That is the greatest statement you can make about your wife. I met my wife my senior year, and that went pretty good.
yeah, that went pretty good, you know, because it's like, you know,
she lets me stay around. That's awesome.
yeah, and she's still around. I mean, so that's huge.
And we know she makes questionable decisions because she went to Jacksonville State.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, and like I said, it's still crazy that there are coaches that are going to be in that room that I ran against, or I stopped them from winning a national championship, that we end up winning. Like Brian Whitlock, he's at Wayland Baptist, really good friend of mine. Doug Edgar at Indiana Tech. Doug Edgar is one of the people that wrote a recommendation for me to get in. So, you know, and I compete against him all the time. So, you know, people think sometimes when there's a rivalry, or it's like a heated rivalry, and it's really not. It's all mutual respect. And I just really appreciate all of them, because it's a lot of coaches going to listen to my speech and they're like, dude, I remember that dude. There's going to be some that like, I didn't have no clue that Southeastern coach was that guy at Shorter. But then there's some that do know that. So, no, it's just a blessing, man. And I just, you know, I'd love for as many people to be there as possible to kind of hear, you know, my story and how I got to where I am, and the people that helped me get there.
Well, man, I love how, you know, the theme today has been about writing your own history, whether it's through a program, through it's you going and making sure that your first year's goal was don't get sent home. Like, let's make sure I'm doing the grades, doing the right things with coaches, etc. I love how you are writing your own history. And because of the profession that you're in as a track coach, you're helping others write their history, right? So like the people, like the reason I asked about like your top three, because I know you can start thinking about the things that they did. I knew Scott Byrd would, of course, be one of the, and you start thinking about the times when Scott didn't give up on you. Scott knew he had to kind of punch you in the gut to do better today, whether it was grades or on the track, right? And you just know, like, I am where I am today because of people like that. Right. Yeah. And so what you're doing as a track coach, whether it's at Southeastern, Loyola, it doesn't matter. If you go to another institution one day, what you're doing as a coach today is that positive influence on the athletes, and they get to look back. They don't always know it in the day. They don't know it on Tuesday, but a decade later, they look back and like, man, am I thankful Nick saw something in me, right? He saw something in me before I could even see it myself. And thank God when I failed that class, he didn't give up on me. You're rewriting other people's histories at that point. And just a second ago, you said, I just wanted to make my family proud. Hey, you can check that off, Big Daddy. Like that's a big check, done, accomplished. And you continue to do that. And along with other people, Scott, athletes that you have now, people that you don't even know that look at you and be like, I don't know that guy, but man, he's doing something right. Like that's the effect you have. And you're just doing an amazing job, man. Just really just, it's kind of weird coming from a stranger here, but man, I'm proud of you, dog. I mean, that's so awesome. The impact that you're making personally and this huge network, specifically in the sport of track and field.
I appreciate it a lot.
I am disappointed that your wife went to Jacksonville State though.
Yeah, old Troy. I'm sure she'll say the same about you, Troy Trojans. And then Troy Trojans, right?
Say again? Yeah, of course, with the Trojans. Yeah. And here, I'll tell you, what's your, I think you said daughter. What's your daughter's name?
Aspen. So I have three daughters. I had two in a previous relationship while I was in college, and I had one with my wife. The oldest one is Nadia. Alex is the middle, and Aspen is the baby. Now, the oldest one, she's an AAU All-American thrower. And then my middle daughter, she's a 4-time national champion track in AAU. So
track is your life, literally. Like, hey, Aspen, guess what? You're gonna run track. You're gonna do something. You're gonna throw. You're gonna jump. You're doing something.
Days old.
How much?
She's been at practice since days old.
Oh, I thought you said she is days old. I was like, oh, I didn't know that.
No, she's been coming since she's been days old, and now she's running around at practice and everything. Now she's got some little speed on her. So.
Well, you guys are being great leaders to them, man. That's amazing. I will one up your wife here and tell you how much of a better alum of Troy I am than she is of Jack State.
Yeah.
My son's name is Troy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she didn't name her kid Jacksonville or, whatever. So I win the alumni award over your wife, but she wins the award, man, by you guys' beautiful family, man. And again, just so proud of the leadership that you have in your family. You're taking those, hard lessons learned from when you were a kid and going through college, and you're applying that to not only your family, but the family that is the Southeastern track and field family, man. Yeah. Just doing a great job.
We appreciate it, my man.
Nick, man, thank you so much, man. It's hard sometimes to be here, right? To be open and honest. And a lot of times I challenge people, and I appreciate you letting me kind of challenge you. That's what relationships are, right? And that's how we get better. Our two main goals here on the Gill Connections podcast are, one, to uplift and honor your journey in this amazing sport, and specifically in this profession of coaching track and field. And it's to bring immense value. Like, I'm so humbled of, hundreds, you'd be amazed, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people that listen to this podcast. So we're very in tune to how do we bring value to them, right? Not just go and read your bio page. Anybody can go do that. You can go Google Southeastern Nick Dodson. It'll come right up, right? But how do we expand and bring value? And I think, our topics on recruiting, our topics on starting programs from scratch, things like that, I think you brought immense value to, thousands of people that will listen to this, man. So just thank you for your authenticity and humbleness today.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. And thank you guys for being here listening. Again, I am just so humbled that you would join us every stinking week, man. It's amazing. I wish there were more weeks in a year, because we have one coach a year. So it's 52 coaches every year. We're starting to wrap up season 2 here, and we're back. We're going to do season 3. I've already got people lined up to start out here in January. We've got some amazing guests coming up as well as we end this year. And I hope you join us again, man, because it's just, it's a lot of fun learning about guys like Nick, people like Amy Dean that we just had on, just amazing people that humble us and choose to be track coaches. They could be anything. This guy could be anything. He could be on ESPN right now. And instead he chooses to be coaching the 400 hurdles, man. I love it. I love it. So thank you for joining us today. If you received value, I'm pretty sure someone else in your network would receive value. So, insert my tagline of spreading it around with TikTok, smokes, all that kind of crazy stuff I say. But please do join us next week, and we'll do it all over again. We're gonna have another awesome person here. They won't be from Florida. I've done 3 Florida people in a row, so I got to go to some other state. But we'll have a lot of fun, and we'll do it all over again. So join us next week, and we'll connect you again with another awesome track coach. Thanks, guys.